There comes a moment in your life when you look around and ask yourself, why am I always the one giving? Why am I overlooked, underestimated, or only called upon when someone else is in need? You smile through the pain. You answer every call. You show up when nobody shows up for you. But deep down, you're exhausted. You're tired of being strong for everyone else while silently breaking inside. And yet, you keep going, hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone will see you, really see you, and treat you the way you deserve to be treated. Let me speak to your soul for a minute, because I know what it feels like to be surrounded yet feel invisible, to be kind but taken for granted, to be loyal but treated like an option. But I want to tell you something powerful today. If you do this one thing just once, I promise you, the way people treat you will never be the same again. This isn't about revenge. It's not about playing games. It's about shifting the power back into your hands. You're not here to be walked on. You're here to rise. You know, there's something sacred about silence. There's a weight to it, a strength. It's not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of power. And the older you get, the more you realize that not everything needs a response. Not every insult deserves your energy, and not everyone is entitled to your explanation. Some of y'all are exhausting yourselves trying to explain your heart to people who have already made up their minds about who you are. You're bending over backwards trying to justify your value to people who never saw it in the first place. But here's the truth. When you stop explaining yourself, you start reclaiming your peace, because your spirit doesn't owe anyone a translation. And the moment you stop talking is the moment they start listening. Silence makes people uncomfortable, especially when they're used to controlling the narrative. Let them sit with the mystery of your absence. Let them wonder why you stopped chasing, why you stopped picking up, why you felt quiet. That silence, that's the sound of you choosing yourself for the first time in a long time. And trust me, they will feel that shift in ways your words could never deliver. You see, when you always feel the need to explain yourself, what you're really doing is seeking validation. You're asking for permission to exist as you are. You want people to understand your heart, your motives, your reasons. But understand this. Some people aren't listening to understand you. They're listening to respond, to judge, to twist your words. And when you realize that, you stop giving them that power. Not everyone deserves front row access to your thoughts, your feelings, your truth. Some folks don't even deserve the cheap seats. When you start walking in quiet confidence, without trying to defend every decision you make, something beautiful happens. People begin to second guess their assumptions. They start wondering, did I underestimate them? That's the power of presence without performance. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to plead to be understood. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Your peace is your protest. Your calm is your boundary. And your silence is the message they never expected, but one they'll never forget. People will push you into defending yourself just to manipulate your peace. They'll poke you, prod you, accuse you just to get a rise out of you. And the moment you react, they'll twist it against you. That's why you've got to master the art of holding your silence like a sword, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. It takes strength to stay quiet when everything in you wants to scream. It takes discipline to not respond to every lie, every misunderstanding, every false narrative. But you've got to ask yourself, what am I proving and to who? If someone doesn't see your worth now, no amount of explaining will change that. If someone wants to misunderstand you, they will. And if someone truly values you, they won't need a paragraph. They'll understand your heart through your actions. Don't let the noise of the world drag you into emotional warfare. You've got things to build. You've got peace to protect. You've got healing to focus on. And you can't do any of that if you're wasting your breath on people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Let me tell you something real. There is dignity in silence. There's honor in refusing to argue with someone who never intended to hear you. And I know it hurts. I know you want to be heard. I know you want to tell your side, to show them that your intentions were pure. But sometimes walking away without a word is louder than screaming at the top of your lungs. Because silence isn't passive. It's intentional. It's a decision. It's you choosing your inner peace over their chaos. The people who love you don't need the whole story. They trust you. And the ones who left, the ones who turned on you. Let them talk, let them gossip, let them assume. While they're busy running their mouths, you're busy running your race. Because when you rise in silence, when you heal without clapping back, you develop something rare: self-respect. And that kind of power, it scares people. They don't know what to do when they can't provoke you. Your stillness becomes your strength. And one day they'll look back and realize that silence was the loudest message they ever received. We'll live in a world addicted to noise, social media, group chats, constant opinions. Everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be heard. But not everyone deserves your voice. Not everyone is worthy of your truth. That's why silence is so powerful, because it forces people to reflect. When you stop responding, people start seeing their own behavior. They start hearing their own tone. They start noticing your absence and realizing what they lost. And trust me, silence reveals more than any explanation ever could. It shows that you no longer need their approval to breathe. It shows that you've reclaimed your time, your energy, your identity. So stop running around trying to explain why you're no longer tolerating disrespect. Stop telling people why you don't show up the way you used to. Just stop. Let them feel it. Let your growth be the conversation. Let your boundaries be the reply. Because when your peace becomes louder than your pain, you start to live. You start to elevate, and you start attracting people who don't need everything explained. They just get it. You've probably been labeled as too quiet or too distant when you stopped explaining yourself. Good, let them wonder. Let them misunderstand, because your job is not to be everyone's emotional translator. Your job is not to hold their hand through your boundaries. If someone can't respect a no without you breaking it down, they don't respect you. Point blank. And I know that may sound harsh, but it's the truth. You've spent years being the peacemaker, the explainer, the fixer. Now it's time to be the protector of your own soul. Let silence be the space where you meet yourself again. Let it be the sacred ground where you rebuild your strength. You don't owe anyone access to your healing process. You don't have to perform your pain just to be taken seriously. You are allowed to outgrow the room. You are allowed to protect your energy, and you are allowed to move in silence like a storm waiting to rise. Don't underestimate what your quiet transformation is doing. Sometimes the world has to fall silent for the real change to be heard. There are people who will only value you when they no longer have access to you. That's just the way it goes. And that's why silence is so effective. It removes the option. When you stop explaining yourself, people are forced to deal with the consequences of how they treated you. They can no longer gaslight you into believing it was your fault. They can no longer twist your words because you've said nothing. That's when the truth starts to echo in their own mind. That's when they realize that losing you wasn't about you being too sensitive or too distant. It was about you getting tired of being disrespected and unheard. So when you remove your voice from the chaos, you gain clarity. You begin to see who actually values your presence, who reaches out when you're not constantly available, who asks if you're okay instead of accusing you of acting different. That's silence. That's you leveling up. That's you saying, I'm done explaining my worth to people who never saw it. That's you becoming someone who no longer begs to be seen, but commands respect by simply being. Silence is where you meet your strength. In the quiet moments, in the stillness, when no one is texting you back, when no one is calling, when you're alone with your thoughts, that's where you grow. Because in those moments, you start to hear your own voice again. Not the voices of others telling you who you are, but your own. You remember what peace feels like. You realize that some battles were never worth your words. You realize that some battles were never worth your words. You find yourself again without the noise, without the pressure to be understood. And the people who truly love you, they'll hear you even when you say nothing. They'll notice when your energy shifts. They won't need a long message to get it, because love listens. Respect recognizes, and silence, it filters out the ones who never cared in the first place. Stop fearing the silence. Embrace it. Let it rebuild you. Let it strengthen your spine and sharpen your mind. Because when you return, if you choose to, you'll return as someone who no longer feels the need to explain, but someone who simply is. And that kind of presence, that's unshakable. You don't heal by being louder, you heal by becoming wiser, and wisdom teaches you that peace is the ultimate flex. You want to shock people? Don't argue. Don't post about it. Don't throw shade. Just move different. Move with grace. Move in purpose. Let them wonder how you got so calm. Let them question why you're not reacting. That's when you know you've grown. When their chaos no longer disturbs your spirit. And it's not because you stopped caring, it's because you started caring about the right things. Your joy, your alignment, your mental health. You stopped needing to be understood and started being okay with just being. That's where the shift happens. That's when people start treating you differently. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped proving who you are. The silence creates space for self-respect to rise, for dignity to lead, for you to walk into rooms and not say a word, but have the whole atmosphere adjust to your presence. That's the power of not explaining. That's the power of letting silence speak. Because at the end of the day, your energy introduces you before you ever say a word. And when your silence is rooted in self-worth, it speaks volumes. You don't have to argue to prove a point. You don't have to defend your boundaries to people who benefit from you having none. Your peace doesn't need permission. Your healing doesn't require applause. So if they don't understand your silence, let them go. If they're offended by your peace, let them be. Because once you stop explaining yourself, once you truly embrace the power of silence, the world around you shifts. People start treating you differently because you started treating yourself differently. And that right there is the breakthrough you've been waiting for. There's a moment in life when you look around and realize you've been living for everyone but yourself. Every yes you gave came at the expense of your peace, your energy, your time. And deep down, you knew you didn't want to. But you said yes anyway. You didn't want to seem selfish. You didn't want to let anyone down. You didn't want to deal with the guilt. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your soul, you're saying no to yourself. And after a while, that builds up. You begin to resent people, not because of what they're asking, but because of what you're sacrificing just to keep them happy. And you can't live like that. You can't thrive like that. That's why you have to learn how to say no and say it without guilt. Because guilt is the tool the world uses to keep you obedient, to keep you tired, to keep you small. But the most powerful thing you can do for your life is to honor your boundaries, protect your energy, and understand that no is not rejection, it's self-respect. It's choosing you unapologetically. People will test your boundaries the moment you start setting them. They'll say you've changed. They'll call you selfish. They'll guilt trip you with everything they've ever done for you. And in that moment, you'll be tempted to cave, to explain, to apologize. But don't let guilt manipulate your truth. Because if someone truly loves you, they won't be offended by your no. They'll respect it. They'll honor it. The only people who get angry when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. And that's something you need to remember every time that old guilt creeps in. You are not here to carry everyone. You are not the solution to every crisis. You are not responsible for everyone's feelings. You are responsible for your own life. And the moment you embrace that is the moment you step into your power. Saying no is not a betrayal. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a declaration that your needs, your time, your sanity matter too. And if that offends someone, let it. Because your job isn't to keep people comfortable. It's to keep yourself whole. When you've been a people pleaser your whole life, saying no feels like a sin. You feel like you're letting the whole world down. You worry what they'll think, how they'll react, whether they'll still love you. And that's how guilt keeps you stuck. It makes you believe that your worth is tied to your availability, that your value is based on how much you sacrifice. But hear me loud. Your value is not measured by how drained you are. Only. You are not more lovable because you're exhausted. You are not more worthy because you overextend. Love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. Real love celebrates your no just as much as your yes. It understands that your soul needs space, that your spirit needs rest. And if someone can't accept that, they were never loving you. They were using you. So the next time guilt rises up in your chest, Pause and breathe. Ask yourself, am I saying yes because I want to, or because I'm afraid to say no? And if it's fear, that's your signal to choose differently. That's your moment to say no and mean it and walk away without explaining a damn thing. Your time is your life. Every yes you give is time you will never get back. So you better make sure it's worth it. Because when you say yes to something that doesn't light you up, doesn't serve your growth, doesn't bring you peace, you're saying no to the things that do. That's the math. Every time you agree to something out of guilt, you are betraying the version of you that's trying to evolve. And I get it. You want to be kind. You want to be generous. But kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You cannot pour from a cup that's empty. And if you keep giving out of guilt, one day you'll wake up bitter, drained, and wondering why no one's giving back. But the truth is, you trained them. You taught them that your no was negotiable, that your time was disposable, that your needs didn't matter. But it's not too late to teach them something new, to show up differently, to say no with strength in your voice and peace in your heart. Because when you start honoring your no, your life begins to shift. Your circle tightens, your energy rises, and your peace becomes non-negotiable. Let me tell you something, brother. Saying no is a spiritual practice. It's you affirming that you trust your intuition, that you believe your needs matter, that you know your worth. And when you start practicing that kind of self-respect, everything around you changes. The relationships that were built on your silence begin to crumble. The friendships that depended on your compliance start to fade. And that's not a loss, that's a blessing, right? Because what remains are the people who love you, not just for what you do, but for who you are. Your no becomes a filter that reveals the truth. And yes, it will be uncomfortable at first. You'll doubt yourself. You'll replay conversations in your head, but keep going. Keep choosing yourself. Keep reminding yourself that your life is not a negotiation. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to be at peace with yourself. And peace comes when you stop betraying yourself to make others comfortable. It comes when you start showing up in your full truth, even when it means saying no. Even when it means disappointing others, because their disappointment is not your burden to carry. You ever notice how some people only reach out when they need something, how they disappear when you're hurting, but suddenly show up with a request when they need help? Those are the people who will make you feel the guiltiest for saying no. But hear me, they're not entitled to your energy. They're not entitled to your yes. Just because you've been available in the past doesn't mean you're required to always be. Growth means realizing that not every call is yours to answer. Not every burden is yours to carry. And when you start saying no, you start forcing people to step up or step out. You teach them that your time is sacred, your presence is earned, and your love is not a free-for-all. And the people who truly value you, they'll understand. They won't guilt trip you. They'll thank you for being honest, because honesty builds real connection. Guilt builds resentment. And you've carried that weight long enough. It's time to stop feeling bad for choosing yourself. It's time to stop apologizing for setting boundaries. You don't owe anyone a version of you that's burnt out, bitter, or broken just to make them feel comfortable. Let's talk about family, because sometimes the hardest people to say no to are the ones closest to us, the ones who raised us, loved us, stood by us. But here's the thing. Family doesn't mean ownership. You are not obligated to say yes just because there's blood involved. Respect is mutual, even in families. And if they can't handle your boundaries, that's not your guilt to carry. You can love someone deeply and still say no. You can care for someone and still put yourself first, because real love doesn't demand self-abandonment. And I know this goes against everything you've been taught, especially if you were raised to put others before yourself. But now it's time to reparent yourself, to give yourself the love and protection you've been giving everyone else. Saying no to family doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you healthy. It makes you strong. And if they choose to take your no personally, that's their process. You're not responsible for how they receive your truth. You're only responsible for delivering it with honesty, love, and peace. Because your healing matters too. Your rest matters too. And your no, that's sacred, even in the presence of blood. You've got to stop living your life on a guilt trip. That road leads nowhere but burnout. You weren't born to be someone's backup plan, their emotional cushion, their go-to fixer. You were born to live a life that's full, aligned, and free. And that requires boundaries. That requires the courage to say, I can't do this right now, and not feel like you have to explain yourself. Listen, every yes that doesn't serve you is a step away from your purpose. It's time to recalibrate, to stop overbooking your soul just to avoid guilt. You are not a machine. You are not infinite. Your energy is sacred. And when you say no, you're not just setting a boundary with others, you're building trust with yourself. You're telling your spirit, I hear you, I've got you, I won't abandon you for the comfort of others. That's what healing looks like. And at first it might feel wrong, it might feel like you're being mean, but you're not, you're being true. And in a world that wants you to be everything for everyone, being true to yourself is the most radical thing you can do. Every time you say yes to avoid guilt, you teach your subconscious that your feelings don't matter, that your time doesn't matter, that everyone else's needs are more important than your own. And that message plays on repeat in your mind. It becomes your default setting until one day you're running on empty and wondering why no one's there for you. But the truth is, you trained them. You trained them to expect your yes. You taught them that your no didn't really mean no. But you can rewrite that story. You can say not this time and let that be enough. No explanation, no justification, just the quiet strength of a person who knows their worth. That's what saying no without guilt looks like. It looks like freedom. It looks like peace. It looks like a life where you're not always in survival mode. You get to rest. You get to choose. And you get to stop apologizing for honoring your limits. Because your limits are not weaknesses, they're your wisdom. And the more you trust them, the more you realize that the people who truly love you will never require you to abandon yourself to stay close. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are here to be whole within yourself. And being whole means you get to say no without carrying the guilt like a badge of shame. Guilt is not your guide. It's your old conditioning trying to keep you small. But you've outgrown that. You've grown into someone who understands that protecting your peace is not rude, it's responsible. You've grown into someone who knows that no is not the end of a relationship, it's the beginning of self-respect. And yes, some people will walk away. Let them. Because anyone who walks away because you finally stood up for yourself was never meant to stay. And the ones who stay, they'll see your no as a sign of your growth, your clarity, your strength. You are not a villain for saying no. You are not cold. You are not heartless. You are finally honoring the voice inside you that's been whispering all along. You matter too. And that whisper, it's turning into a roar. So let it rise. Let it speak. And let your no set you free. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is the one you don't announce. No explanations. No dramatic exits. No final speeches. Just quiet distance. Silent growth, peaceful withdrawal. Because the more you evolve, the more you realize not everyone deserves a front row seat to your journey. Some people are just there for the performance. They're clapping for the version of you that keeps giving, keeps shrinking, keeps sacrificing. But the moment you change the script, they get uncomfortable. That's your sign. That's when you stop explaining and start walking. You don't need their permission. You don't owe them closure. Your peace is not a group project. If something no longer feeds your soul, step away. Not everything needs to be said. Not every exit needs an audience. Some doors you close in silence. Some chapters you end by turning the page without saying a word. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's self-respect. Because real growth doesn't make a scene. It moves in silence, heals in private, and shows up later unrecognizable. You don't have to tell them you're gone. Just go. Let your absence teach what your presence tolerated for too long. Let your peace be the final word. There comes a time in your life when talking no longer serves you. When the explanations you used to give, the arguments you used to entertain, the apologies you used to offer, they all begin to feel heavy, tiring, empty. Because when someone has made up their mind about who you are, no amount of talking can change it. When people are committed to misunderstanding you, clarity becomes useless. So you stop trying. You stop debating your worth. You stop defending your heart, and you walk silently, calmly, without anger, without revenge. Just an inner knowing that you've outgrown the space. You don't scream that you're leaving, you just stop showing up. You stop answering texts that drain you. You stop sitting at tables where love feels conditional. You stop entertaining conversations that belittle your growth, and it confuses them. It shakes them, because you didn't fight, you didn't beg, you didn't warn them, you just removed yourself. And that silence, that quiet departure, it's loud. Louder than any confrontation, louder than any final word. Because it's not just your voice that left, it's your energy, your presence, your patience. And that's what they never thought they'd lose. People always expect a warning. They expect you to plead, to announce your departure, to throw one last fit for their attention. But what they don't expect, what really shakes them, is when you simply go quiet. When you shift your energy without a word. No closure, no final meeting, just silence. And in that silence is power, because now they feel the weight of your absence. They feel what they took for granted. They realize the access they had wasn't permanent. And that's when they start to reach. They send those, hey, just checking on you messages. They pretend nothing happened. But you're past that. You're done teaching lessons with your mouth. Now you teach with your silence, with your distance. You've learned that peace doesn't need to be announced, that healing happens off stage. You're not performing anymore. You're protecting, you're preserving, you're rebuilding, and they don't get to witness it because they had their chance when your heart was open, your love was loud, your loyalty was active, and they missed it. So now they get silence, not as punishment, but as protection for you. Because the new you doesn't chase, the new you doesn't beg, the new you disappears with dignity. You see, silence isn't passive, it's intentional, it's powerful, it's the loudest statement you'll ever make. And the people who once called you too emotional, too sensitive, too much, will be confused when your silence becomes your strength. Because they were counting on the old version of you. The one who over-explained, over-apologized, overcompensated, but that version is gone. And you didn't hold a press conference about it, you just left. Quietly, respectfully, finally. And that's what they didn't see coming because they mistook your patience for weakness, your kindness for naivety, your silence for surrender. But what they didn't know is you were learning, watching, growing. And when the time came, you moved. No fanfare, no warnings, just movement, just freedom. And the beauty of it, you're not bitter. You're not angry. You're just done. And there's something sacred about being done. Not loud and messy, just clean, clear, and certain. You've reclaimed your power. You've reclaimed your time. And you don't need applause or understanding. You don't need people to agree with your healing. You just need your peace. And now that you have it, you protect it with silence, with distance, and with the strength of someone who finally chose themselves. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Not every departure needs a speech. Because some people knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't think you'd ever leave. They thought your loyalty was forever. That no matter how they treated you, you'd always be there. But you finally realized your worth. You finally understood that staying quiet to keep the peace was killing your spirit. So you stopped showing up. You stopped fighting for conversations that went nowhere. You stopped proving your worth to people who only saw your convenience, not your value. And it felt strange at first, like you were abandoning something. But you weren't abandoning them. You were choosing you. And that's a hard thing to do when your heart is wired to fix, to hold on, to make peace. But now your heart is learning a new language, the language of boundaries, the language of walking away with grace, the language of self-respect. And that language doesn't need words, it just needs action. So let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them sit in the silence you left behind, because you didn't leave to be chased, you left to be free, and freedom doesn't come with an announcement, it comes with a decision. There's something sacred about leaving quietly, about detaching without drama. You don't ghost people to hurt them, you walk away to protect your peace. Because when you've given all you could, when you've bent in every direction to be understood, and still they overlook you, that's when silence becomes your savior. You begin to see that your energy was the gift, not your presence, and when you remove it, everything shifts. The ones who only valued you when you were available suddenly start to feel the void. They remember the light you brought, the safety you gave, the stability you offered, and yet it's too late. Because now you've learned the art of slipping away, not to get revenge, but to reclaim yourself. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. You're no longer explaining what your absence means. If they didn't value your presence, they'll have to sit with your silence. That's not your burden to fix. You've already carried enough. Now you get to rest. You get to breathe. You get to rise quietly, powerfully, beautifully. No announcement, just elevation, just peace, just you. Choosing yourself in a world that constantly asks you to choose everyone else first. Growth changes your language. Where you once argued, now you observe. Where you once fought to be understood, now you choose silence, because silence can't be misquoted. Silence can't be twisted. Silence doesn't need to be justified. And in that space, you find clarity. You begin to realize that removing yourself isn't cruel, it's necessary. That disappearing doesn't mean you hate them. It means you love yourself enough to walk away. You don't leave with bitterness in your heart. You leave with wisdom in your soul, because you've seen enough. You've heard enough, you've felt enough, and now it's time. Time to choose healing over history. Time to choose growth over guilt. Time to choose peace over people-pleasing. And you do it quietly, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You're done debating your value. Done proving your loyalty. Done being the bigger person just to be hurt again, and now you're just gone. Not as a ghost, but as a new version of you. One that doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't stay where they are not seen. You've stepped into a new season. And in this season, your silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. Let them wonder where you went. Let them question what happened. Because the truth is, they knew. They just didn't expect you to act on it. They knew they took advantage of your kindness, knew they dismissed your boundaries, knew they made you feel small. But they also knew your heart, and they bet on it. They bet you'd never leave. That you'd always forgive, that you'd keep showing up. And when you didn't, when you finally pulled back, it exposed everything. It exposed their comfort. It exposed their assumptions. It exposed the way they counted on your silence. But silence, when rooted in self-love, is not weakness, it's power. It's strategy. It's elevation. So let them sit in the space you once filled. Let them feel the loss they didn't believe would come. Because your absence is not meant to hurt, it's meant to heal. You, not them. You're not disappearing for attention, you're disappearing for transformation. Because your energy deserves a return on investment. And where it's not being respected, it must be removed quietly, completely, without apology. Because when you truly know your worth, your silence becomes your sword, and you carry it with grace. You don't owe your growth to the people who couldn't respect your presence. You don't have to take them with you. Some people are meant to be chapters, not lifelong stories. And when that chapter ends, close the book. No announcement, no warning, just done. Because peace isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like declining invitations. Sometimes it looks like not replying to that text. Sometimes it looks like unfollowing, unsubscribing, unfinding yourself in spaces you no longer belong to. And that's okay. You don't need permission to protect your soul. You don't need consensus to change direction. Some journeys are solo by design. And the moment you stop fearing what people will think is the moment you start honoring what your spirit already knows. That you've stayed too long. That you've given too much. That it's time. And when it's time, don't wait for a grand exit. Just go. Quietly, pigments traded. Gracefully. Powerfully. Because the version of you that once tolerated disrespect is gone, and in its place is someone who understands the value of silence. Someone who doesn't need to be seen to be whole. Someone who knows that the loudest message is the one they never saw coming, your absence. Put energy into yourself first, because no one else will do it for you. People will take what you give, drain what you offer, and still ask for more. They'll applaud you when you're shining for them, but vanish when your light dims. That's why you have to stop pouring into cups that never fill yours. You've got to stop showing up for people who wouldn't even notice your absence. Because when you burn yourself out trying to keep others warm, you're left cold and forgotten. It's not selfish to put yourself first. It's survival. You can't save anyone if you're drowning. You can't give your best when you're running on empty. So refuel, rebuild, reconnect with your own soul, pour into your own spirit. Because when you rise, everything around you rises. When you're whole, you attract wholeness. So stop waiting for validation from the outside. Stop chasing appreciation that never comes. Start giving yourself the love, time, and energy you've been handing out so freely to others. Because when you stop betraying yourself for others' comfort, you finally step into your power. And the truth is, nobody's coming to save you. You are your rescue. You are your breakthrough. And it starts when you choose you. The world has taught you that your worth comes from being available to everyone but yourself. From saying yes when your heart screams no. From stretching yourself thin to be everything for everyone. But what about you? Who's checking on your dreams? Who's protecting your peace? Who's pouring into your spirit when you're drained? You've spent so long being the strong one that you've forgotten how to receive. But strength doesn't mean neglect. It doesn't mean ignoring your own needs. Real strength is saying, I matter too. It's choosing to rest when the world expects you to hustle. It's choosing your mental health over their opinions. It's walking away from what drains you, even if it's familiar. Because when you finally prioritize yourself, everything changes. You stop seeking external permission. You stop living for approval. You stop apologizing for needing time, space, silence. You start listening to your body. You start honoring your emotions. You start loving yourself, not just in words, but in action. And that's where the shift happens. That's where healing begins. Not in fixing others, but in finally fixing you. Because if you don't put energy into yourself, you'll spend your life performing for people who wouldn't even clap for your recovery. When you put energy into yourself first, you stop giving people the power to determine your worth. You stop waiting for someone to choose you, to recognize you, to finally give back what you've been giving out. Because you realize you were the one you were waiting for. You were the answer, the healer, the light all along, but you were too busy being everything to everyone else to see it. Now it's time to reverse that energy, to stop explaining your boundaries and start enforcing them. To stop begging for space in people's lives and start building a home inside your own soul. Your energy is sacred. Your time is valuable. Your heart is not a doormat. You weren't created to be overlooked, to be tolerated, to be second-guessed. You were made to thrive. But thriving requires investment into yourself, into your vision, into your health, into your healing. And yes, it will upset some people. People who benefited from your exhaustion, people who liked you better, broken, silent, self-sacrificing. But let them be uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable, but so is staying stuck. So is waking up every day with a heart heavy from pouring into everyone but you. That ends now. This season is about you. Nobody sees the toll it takes to constantly be available, to always answer, always help, always carry the weight for everyone else. But you feel it. You feel it in your body, your mind, your soul. The fatigue, the frustration, the emptiness, because you've given everything and gotten so little in return. That's not love. That's depletion. And love shouldn't cost your peace. So now it's time to reclaim your energy, to take a breath before responding, to check in with yourself before checking on others, to stop sprinting toward everyone else's fire while yours burns low. Because when you neglect yourself long enough, you forget who you are. You become a version of you shaped by other people's needs, other people's demands, other people's opinions. And the real you gets buried beneath responsibility. But now is the season of resurrection. Now is the time to reintroduce yourself to yourself, to remember what lights you up, to prioritize your passions, to move with intention, not obligation. Because every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to something that builds you. And you can't afford to lose yourself one more day. So put the energy back where it belongs, into you. You've been taught to sacrifice, to serve, to give endlessly. And there's beauty in that. But not when it leaves you bitter, broken, and burned out. Not when you're the one nobody checks on. Not when you're the strong friend who cries alone. That's not strength, that's silence. And it's slowly killing your light. So break the pattern. Choose yourself loudly, boldly, without guilt, because you're not selfish for needing time to heal. You're not wrong for wanting peace. You're not cold for walking away from chaos. You're wise, you're growing, you're waking up, and you finally realized your energy is currency. Stop spending it on things that offer no return. Pour it into your health, your mind, your goals, your faith. Because when you invest in yourself, you rise differently, you speak differently, you love differently, from overflow, not obligation, from strength, not survival. And yes, people will notice, they'll feel the shift, but that's not your burden to carry. Your only responsibility is to honor the soul God gave you, to protect your light, to guard your peace. Because you've dimmed yourself long enough, this is your reminder. You're allowed to put yourself first, not after the crisis, not when it's convenient, but now, always. The more you give yourself what you need, the less you expect it from others. You stop begging for scraps of attention. You stop shrinking to be accepted because you're no longer starving for love. You're feeding yourself daily. And that changes everything. It changes the way you show up, the way you set boundaries, the way you say no without apology. Because when you're full of self-respect, self-love, self-worth, you no longer chase empty validation. You become the source. You start attracting peace instead of chaos, truth instead of confusion, loyalty instead of games. And it all begins with the energy you pour into yourself, the way you speak to yourself, the way you forgive yourself, the way you choose rest over proving, joy over perfection, stillness over noise. This world will keep telling you to do more, give more, be more, but it'll never tell you to pause, to breathe, to check in with your soul. That's your job, that's your responsibility, and it's sacred. Because the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you'll ever have. So show up for you, love you, celebrate you, pour into you. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. That's not ego, it's evolution. There will be people who call it selfish. People who say you've changed. Let them talk. Let them feel the distance that your growth created. Because the truth is, you did change. You evolved. You stopped betraying yourself to belong. You stopped dimming your light to make others comfortable. And now you're choosing you. Every day, in every way. And it's uncomfortable because you've never done it before. You were conditioned to be everything for everyone, to hold the world on your shoulders. But now you're learning to let it go, to prioritize your peace over their approval, your well-being over their expectations. And yes, it's lonely at first, but it's also liberating. Because when you put energy into yourself first, you stop settling for bare minimum. You stop compromising your boundaries. You stop explaining your worth. And that energy, that vibration, it attracts better people, better opportunities, better days. Because you're finally living in alignment with who you are, not who they needed you to be. And that right there is the definition of freedom. So don't feel guilty, feel grounded. Don't apologize for putting yourself first. Applaud yourself. Because for once, you didn't abandon you. You chose you. And that changes everything. Your peace is your power. Your clarity is your compass. Your energy is your currency. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. Every time you say yes to what drains you, you're stealing from the part of you that's trying to grow. And growth needs space. It needs quiet. It needs fuel, not noise, not drama, not distraction. So reclaim your space. Reclaim your time. Take your mornings back. Take your focus back. Get back to the gym. Get back to the prayer. Get back to the books. Get back to the mirror and remind yourself who you are. You're not here to survive. You're here to thrive. But thriving starts with what you feed yourself. Emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Stop feeding on negativity. Stop scrolling through lives that aren't yours. Stop chasing love in places that disrespect your soul. You already have everything you need inside you, but it needs nurturing. So go inward, go deep, build from within. Because when your foundation is strong, you don't crumble when people leave. You don't fall apart when things shift. You rise. You recalibrate. You keep building, not for them, for you, for the version of you that finally believes they're worth the energy, worth the effort, worth the love. It's time to break the cycle of self-neglect, to stop being the last one you care for, because you can't give your best if you're always giving yourself what's left. Your future depends on the choices you make today. So make the hard ones. Wake up early, set the boundaries. Walk away from what drains you. Say no without guilt. Say yes to your purpose. Say yes to your health. Say yes to your peace, because this is your life. And you've spent too long living it for others. Too long waiting for the right moment. the right people, the right motivation. But it was never about them. It was about you, your willingness, your discipline, your decision. You don't need more time. You need more intention. You need more focus, more belief. Because once you realize that the only person standing in your way is you, you'll move different. You'll love different. You'll live different. So put the energy into yourself like your life depends on it. Because it does. This isn't about isolation. It's about elevation. And the only way to rise is to stop waiting for someone else to lift you. Stand up, show up, step in, and pull. Stop being emotionally available to the wrong people. The ones who show up when it's easy but disappear when it's hard. The ones who take and take and take until you're left with nothing but confusion and silence. You're not here to be someone's emotional dumping ground. You're not here to be a free therapist for people who never ask how you're doing. You're not here to be someone's part-time solution while they chase full-time distraction. You've been giving your heart to people who never deserved a piece of it. You've been loyal to people who didn't even have your back. That's not love. That's a pattern. And it's one that needs to end. Because every time you make yourself emotionally available to someone who's unavailable, you're telling your spirit that it doesn't matter. You're teaching yourself to settle for one-sided connections, for empty validation, for conditional presence. But deep down, you know that's not what you deserve. You know your heart wasn't designed for temporary people. So it's time to stop handing out access to people who've done nothing to earn it. Stop sharing your soul with people who only want the surface. Stop giving your energy to those who never pour back in. Protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. You see, the wrong people are experts at pretending. They'll act like they care, like they're invested, like they see your worth, but it's all an illusion. They want the benefit of your love, your presence, your energy without the responsibility of reciprocating it. They want to feel safe in your space, but they never make you feel safe in theirs. They lean on your strength while ignoring your silence. They come alive when you give and vanish when you need. That's not connection, that's exploitation. And the longer you stay emotionally available to them, the more you lose pieces of yourself. Not all wounds bleed. Some show up as overthinking, as anxiety, as self-doubt. That's what happens when you love people who can't or won't love you back. You internalize their inability to commit as your own unworthiness. But you are not the problem. Your love is not too much. Your heart is not too sensitive. You're just giving it to people who are emotionally bankrupt. And it's time to stop. You owe it to your future self to cut ties with anyone who drains you, not out of anger, but out of love. Because love doesn't mean staying. Sometimes love means leaving. Leaving behind the versions of you that accepted breadcrumbs, that tolerated disrespect, that stayed too long. Your healing begins when you walk away. You have to understand this. Being emotionally available is a beautiful thing. It means you're open, you're honest, you're capable of deep love, empathy, compassion. But when that openness is met with indifference, manipulation, or inconsistency, it becomes a weapon used against you. It makes you vulnerable in the worst ways. It turns your strength into a weakness. And that's why boundaries are so important. Not walls, but boundaries. Clear, firm, self-respecting lines that say, you don't get all of me just because you want me. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. That's maturity. That's what happens when you've been broken enough times to finally realize what you will and will not accept. It's okay to outgrow people who refuse to grow. It's okay to stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You're allowed to retreat from chaos. You're allowed to guard your peace. You're allowed to choose people who choose you fully, intentionally, consistently. And until those people show up, you're allowed to walk alone. It's not loneliness. It's preparation, it's recalibration, it's God clearing space in your life so he can bless you with better. But that blessing can't come if you're still tied to what's breaking you. You have to let go. You have to release. You have to stop bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. Some people are only in your life because you made it too easy for them to stay. You kept answering, kept showing up, kept forgiving, and they kept repeating the same disrespectful patterns because they knew you'd be there. You taught them how to treat you. by allowing it, excusing it, enduring it. But you're not that person anymore. You've grown, you've awakened, and now you understand real connection is mutual. It's balanced, it's reciprocal. You shouldn't have to chase effort. You shouldn't have to decode silence. You shouldn't have to beg for the bare minimum. So now you raise your standards. Now you reclaim your time. Now you protect your emotions like they are gold. Because they are. No more emotional investment into people who only offer confusion. No more sharing dreams with those who mock them. No more being available for people who are never emotionally present. Because you're done explaining your worth. Done waiting for people to act right. Done settling for surface level love. This is your healing era. This is your season of intentionality. And that means making hard choices. That means choosing peace over people, sanity over sentiment, growth over guilt. And if it costs you a few relationships, you've just paid your way into freedom. Stop confusing history with loyalty. Just because someone's been around a long time doesn't mean they deserve your heart. Time doesn't equal trust. Proximity doesn't equal purpose. Some people have been in your life for years, but they've never truly seen you, never respected you, never supported your growth. They were just comfortable with the version of you that stayed small, that stayed silent. But you're not that version anymore. And if they can't evolve with you, they can't go with you. The wrong people won't clap for your healing. They won't cheer for your elevation. They'll get quiet when you start setting boundaries. They'll pull away when you stop overgiving. And that's okay. Let them leave. Because your healing is not a group project. Your peace is not a negotiation. You are not here to carry dead weight for the sake of appearances. You are here to rise. And rising requires release. So bless them, forgive them, and keep moving. Because the longer you stay emotionally available to the wrong people, the longer you delay the right ones, the longer you hold the door open for chaos, the longer peace waits on the other side. And peace doesn't chase, it waits. And it's waiting on you to choose yourself. Being emotionally available to the wrong people is like watering dead plants. No matter how much you pour, they never grow. And eventually you start to question if your water has value. You start to question your ability to love, to give, to be enough. But the problem was never your water. It was the soil you were pouring into. Some people are not capable of receiving the love you give. Not because you're flawed, but because they are empty. And they confuse attention with affection. They confuse possession with love. They take your consistency and label it desperation. They take your kindness and mistake it for weakness. That's not on you, that's on them. But your job now is to stop offering your love where it's not honored. Your job is to discern who's worthy of your vulnerability, who's earned your access, because access is sacred. Your heart is sacred. Your soul is sacred. And not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. Some only deserve the balcony. Some don't deserve a ticket at all. And that's not cold, that's clarity. That's what happens when you finally realize that your love is not up for discount. It's full price. And the wrong people can't afford it. You've spent too long interpreting mixed signals as signs of potential, too long trying to read between the lines to find meaning in silence, to justify behavior that hurt you. That's emotional exhaustion, not connection. That's self-sacrifice, not love. You keep hoping they'll change, that one day they'll wake up and realize your value. But what if they already know your value and just don't care? What if they like having access to you without accountability? What if they enjoy your presence but never plan to match your effort? The truth hurts. But it also heals. And the truth is, you can't build with someone who isn't building with you. You can't love someone into being ready. You can't convince someone to respect what they never learned to appreciate. So stop showing up where you're tolerated. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Stop making your love a negotiation. Because the right people won't play with your emotions. They won't make you question your worth. They'll see it, value it, rise to meet it. But that can't happen if you keep blocking the door with the wrong ones. Make room, clear the space, prepare your heart for better. You deserve more than temporary attention, more than late night texts, more than love that only shows up when it's convenient. You deserve consistency, intentionality, security. And you'll only receive that when you stop being emotionally available to people who offer the opposite. Your emotions are not toys. Your time is not disposable. Your love is not conditional. But when you keep giving it to those who don't value it, you teach them that you'll always be there no matter how they treat you. That cycle ends now. You are not available to chaos. You are not available to inconsistency. You are not available to confusion disguised as love. From this moment forward, you are only available to peace, to clarity, to growth. That's your new standard. And if someone can't meet it, they don't get you. Not a piece, not a part, nothing. Because you've healed too much to go back to what broke you. You've cried too many nights to entertain shallow connections. You've risen too far to return to relationships that drain. So close the chapter, lock the door, and stop picking up when dysfunction calls. Every time you choose yourself, you're rewiring your spirit. You're telling your soul, I am worth protecting. That matters. Because for too long, you've abandoned yourself for the comfort of others. For too long, you've compromised your standards just to feel something, even if it hurt. But that ends now. You're learning to sit with yourself, to enjoy your own company, to be your own safe space. And in that solitude, you find strength. You find clarity. You find you, the real you, the one who doesn't chase, the one who doesn't beg, the one who doesn't settle. Because once you know your value, you stop giving discounts, you stop negotiating your worth. And that's when everything changes. That's when the right people begin to show up, not because you needed them, but because you attracted them. Not out of desperation, but out of alignment. And they'll match your energy because your energy no longer tolerates anything less. That's the gift of growth. That's the power of choosing you. So stop being emotionally available to the wrong people and start being emotionally loyal to yourself. Loyalty is a beautiful thing, but it becomes a curse when it's not directed wisely. You've been taught that loyalty means sticking around no matter what, that it means defending people even when they're wrong, that it means keeping relationships alive just because they've been around a long time. But let me ask you, what happens when that loyalty costs you your peace, your dreams, your dignity? What happens when your loyalty to others turns into betrayal of yourself? Because that's what's happening. You keep showing up for people who never show up for you. You keep prioritizing relationships that never prioritize your well-being. And you do it in the name of being loyal. But that's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment. That's emotional slavery, disguised as commitment. You don't owe anyone your silence, your pain, or your stagnation. You owe yourself your truth, your freedom, your healing. It's time to redefine what loyalty really means. It's not about staying in the fire. It's about knowing when to walk away before you get burned. You've been loyal to everyone but yourself, and that's the real betrayal. Start being loyal to your future, loyal to your values, loyal to the version of you that's trying to grow. Because you can't pour into others while you're bleeding dry. Let's be real. Some of the people you're loyal to wouldn't even flinch if you fell. They like you better broken, easier to control, easier to guilt, easier to manipulate. They clap when you're small. They cheer when you shrink. Because as long as you keep dimming your light, they get to stay comfortable in the shadows. That's not love. That's control wrapped in fake connection. And you keep tolerating it because you've confused loyalty with endurance. You think staying means strength. You think silence means wisdom, but all it's doing is draining you. Loyalty without boundaries is a setup for heartbreak, and you've already paid the price too many times. You've been loyal to people who were only loyal to their convenience, who disappeared when you needed them, who used your loyalty as a weapon against you. That's not your burden to carry anymore. You have every right to walk away from relationships that suffocate you. Every right to choose yourself, even if it means disappointing others. Because your mental peace is not up for negotiation. Your self-worth is not a group project. Your growth doesn't require anyone's permission. From now on, loyalty means staying true to your soul, even if it means walking alone. You have been conditioned to believe that loyalty means sacrificing yourself, that being the bigger person means swallowing your truth, tolerating disrespect, and staying quiet to keep the peace. But let me tell you something. Peace that costs your voice isn't peace. It's imprisonment. And some of y'all have been prisoners of your own kindness. prisoners of guilt, prisoners of outdated loyalty codes that no longer serve your healing. It's time to break free, because real loyalty doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't ask you to suffer in silence. It doesn't demand that you carry dead weight just to prove your love. Loyalty to yourself is the foundation of every other relationship you have. When you honor yourself, you attract people who will honor you too. But when you betray yourself, you invite others to do the same. So stop apologizing for choosing you. Stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. Stop mistaking self-sacrifice for virtue. You don't need to bleed to prove your love. You don't need to stay to prove your strength. Walk away with your head high. That's loyalty. That's strength. That's love in its highest form, the kind that starts within. Redefining loyalty means understanding that your first commitment is not to anyone else. It's to your spirit, your heart, your purpose. That's where loyalty should begin. And if anyone asks you to betray that for the sake of keeping them around, they're not your tribe. They're your test. You're not here to babysit people's egos. You're not here to be emotionally available 24/7 for people who never check in on you. You're not here to break yourself into pieces so others can feel whole. That's not love. That's imbalance. And it's not your job to fix what others refuse to face in themselves. You've been loyal long enough to people who drain you, who see your love as currency, who only show up when they need something. That's not a relationship. It's a transaction, and it ends now. From this moment on, loyalty looks like telling the truth. Loyalty looks like holding yourself accountable. Loyalty looks like honoring your own needs, even when it's uncomfortable. You can still be kind without being a doormat, still be loving without being a fool, still be supportive without being self-destructive. Loyalty to yourself is the gateway to every dream you've put on hold. Open that gate, walk through it, and don't look back. When you're loyal to yourself, you no longer beg for closure, you create it. You don't chase explanations, you trust your peace. You don't force conversations, you follow your boundaries. That's the new standard. Because the old version of you always explaining, always overextending, always waiting for people to change, that version is tired. That version is burned out. That version is dying for transformation. And the only way you transform is by choosing you, even if it means losing people, even if it means standing alone. Because if being loyal to others requires you to lie to yourself, that's not love. It's self-sabotage. And every time you stay silent just to keep the peace, you create a war inside yourself. That war ends when you finally say, I matter too. That's when the shift happens. When your heart starts beating for your own dreams. When your energy starts flowing in the direction of your own healing. When your loyalty stops being a chain and becomes a compass, guiding you back to yourself, back to your truth, back to your calling. That's what self-loyalty does. It recenters your power. And you've had that power all along. You just forgot how to use it. You've been so focused on who you might lose if you choose yourself that you haven't stopped to ask, what do I gain? What happens when I become my own priority? What kind of clarity do I unlock when I stop chasing loyalty in people who don't even know how to love? I'll tell you what you gain freedom. Freedom from people pleasing. Freedom from emotional manipulation. Freedom from guilt trips disguised as love. And most importantly, you gain yourself. The version of you that you've been neglecting. The version that dreams, that desires, that deserves. That version is waiting on you, not someone else. You. And all it takes is one decision to stop betraying yourself for people who would never cross the street for your healing. Because if they loved you, truly loved you, they wouldn't require your silence. They wouldn't demand your sacrifice. They would encourage your growth, not fear it. And anyone who's threatened by your evolution is confessing their inability to evolve. That's not your problem. That's not your weight. Your job is to rise. Your job is to be loyal to your calling. And sometimes that means letting go of anyone who wants to keep you small. You are not put on this earth to live in survival mode, to exist on scraps of love, to earn people's respect by proving your worth over and over. You are worthy because you exist. You are valuable because you breathe. And the moment you start believing that, the game changes. You stop chasing closure. You stop settling for inconsistent energy. You stop being loyal to confusion. Instead, you get clear about who you are, clear about what you need, clear about what you will no longer tolerate. And when that clarity comes, loyalty becomes easy because it starts at home. You'll no longer bend backwards for people who wouldn't lean forward for you. You'll no longer defend people who destroy your peace. That's over. You've graduated from that school of suffering. This is the new you, the bold you, the healed you, the self-loyal you, and the people who love you will understand. The people who get angry at your growth were never rooting for you. They were rooting for their access to the version of you that didn't know better. But now you know, and you'll never go back. You don't have to explain why you're protecting your energy, why you're distancing yourself from what drains you, why you're no longer emotionally available for chaos. That's not selfish. That's sacred. Because every time you prioritize yourself, you're telling the universe, I'm ready for more. And more will come, but not if you keep giving your best to people who give you their bare minimum. Not if you keep staying where your soul keeps whispering, this is not your home. You deserve alignment. You deserve peace. And peace begins where self-loyalty lives. Start showing up for yourself the way you always showed up for others. Speak to yourself with the same kindness you gave to people who never returned it. Be your own sanctuary, your own protector, your own home. Because the truth is, nobody can give you what you keep denying yourself. So stop waiting for others to choose you. Choose yourself every morning, every decision, every time. That's what loyalty looks like now. There's a version of you that's unstoppable, but you'll never meet them if you keep betraying yourself. You'll never rise while clinging to what weighs you down. So today you choose. You choose you. Not because you're bitter, not because you're angry, but because you're done abandoning yourself to make others comfortable. You're done watering dead soil. You're done being available for conversations that go nowhere. Your energy is a currency, and you've been overspending it on people who never give returns. From this moment on, your love has standards. Your time has boundaries. Your presence has requirements. And anyone who can't honor that doesn't get to walk with you. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. That's maturity. That's healing. Because once you realize what you bring to the table, you stop waiting to be invited. You build your own table, you sit with your peace, you toast with your future, and you eat in the company of your higher self. That's what redefining loyalty really means. Not being available to everyone, but being true to yourself no matter what. As we conclude today, I want you to take a moment and reflect on what loyalty truly means in your life. For too long, you've been taught that loyalty is about staying no matter what. It's about sacrificing your own peace, your own well-being, and your dreams for the sake of others. But that's not loyalty, it's self-betrayal. Real loyalty begins within. It's about honoring your truth, your values, and your needs. It's about standing firm in who you are, even when it means walking away from people who no longer align with your vision. When you begin to honor yourself, you'll find that the relationships that truly matter will blossom. Those who love and respect you will understand that the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. You don't need to explain why you choose peace, why you choose to protect your energy. You don't need to justify setting boundaries or walking away from toxic connections. Because true loyalty doesn't require self-sacrifice for others' comfort. It demands respect for who you are and what you need to grow. As you redefine loyalty, you step into your power. You stop bending to the expectations of others and start living for your own peace, your own happiness. Your energy is precious, and it's time you stop wasting it on people who don't see your worth. This journey is not easy, but it's worth every step. By choosing loyalty to yourself, you unlock the strength to walk away from what's holding you back. You clear the path for real growth, for real love, and for real success. The version of you that's been waiting to be unleashed is standing right there waiting for you to take that step forward. As you embrace this new loyalty, you'll see how much more you have to give, not just to others, but to yourself. You are worthy of all the love, peace, and joy you've been giving away so freely. It's time to start giving it back to the one person who matters most. You. May you walk forward with clarity, strength, and an unwavering commitment to yourself. As you redefine what loyalty means in your life, remember that you are your most important investment. Choose yourself every day and watch how everything around you transforms. Keep your peace, honor your truth, and never be afraid to walk away from anything that no longer serves you. Thank you for taking the time to reflect on this. May you continue to grow, thrive, and live with the power of self-loyalty guiding you every step of the way. Stay strong, stay true, and never forget that the greatest loyalty you can give is to yourself. God bless you.